Rat Tales by the old surfer man in the shed, Baretta. This is a story about Baretta, the old surfer man who lived in the shed by the beach. It was about time that he took care of those rats that were bothering him so he couldn't be dreaming of the perfect wave in Tahiti. Circus Actors. The rat problem began because I had made the mistake of keeping the trash by the front door and having lots of food hanging from the ceiling in my rat-proof grocery bags. Unfortunately, the rats don't see that as a deterrent because they just want to eat and not stop eating. I used to put my food inside these little plastic drawers, but they figured out how to slide through them. They'd be in there just eating away, and it would drive me crazy, especially when they'd eat my sunflower seeds. They'd take each one, crack it open, and you could hear them munching down. It was like a bowl of cereal to them. So I had to clean out those drawers and get rid of my sunflower seeds. But I still had a problem on my hands because the rats had learned to fly earlier in their childhood. Now they would just hang onto the walls and leap to the bags of food. It was driving me crazy at night as they did acrobatics and somersaults like circus actors. Big brains. I knew that I had to be very smart with the rats because they were also very smart for little furry creatures. They had big brains, according to the scientists. They had even ways to trick an old surfer man. I didn't want to kill them with rat traps because that's too bloody, and it's very scary when their heads explode and their brains pop out. So I had just used the old standby glue trap, which is probably the cheapest thing on the market. The rats had their little holes under my shed where they were running in and out like on a freeway at night. They would come in through one hole and run out through another. Well, their holes were obvious, so I started sticking glue traps right into them. But I watched the rats one night, and they were so fucking agile, they could actually step through the tunnel without touching the glue trap. They just knew how to duck down and leap through and actually avoid it. It was very amazing. Not only are they acrobatic, but they have the ability to avoid any danger through mind over matter. Two-pounder. My first big feller that I got was about a 2-pounder. He came in, got stuck in a hole on a glue trap, and immediately started screaming. This alerted me out of my slumber, and I ran to punish him. I picked him up by the mechanical arm that I retrieved bottles from the beach with, and flung him over the hill into oblivion. He may still be traveling in the astral plane. I think it was his family that he left behind for me to tend with next, because there were several wives and siblings that were a menace to the old surfer man in the shed. Chupacabra. One of the fine rats was stuck to a glue trap and screaming. He couldn't get off. He was so mad and just kept screaming and screaming. So I jumped up out of bed, took my mechanical arm, and put him outside next to the paint cans on the table. In the morning, he had vanished. I think at night, lurking around the shed, there is some type of monster. You could call it a chupacabra. It's a mutant killing beast. Some say that the Air Force created it from Vietnamese refugees. But whatever it is, it waits in the shadows for the rat feast. A rat stuck to a glue trap is its favorite meal late in the evening as the village sleeps. Two lizards. I came home in the early evening and saw that the glue trap meant for the rats was stuck with two lizards. Two lonely little lizards that had wandered onto the glue trap and could not budge an inch. I set them out in the sun, and the sun warmed the glue trap, and I was able to yank their little lizard bodies off of it before they died. So I think God is happy that I saved two lizards from the terrible death meant for the rats. Bulging eyeballs. One of the things that I can remember about the young rats is their bulging eyeballs that stare back at you. But the rats aren't afraid because they feel like you're their family. Maybe it's because I don't kill them violently with rat traps and crush their necks. The glue traps are a very nice way to put them out in the evening for something else to eat them. The tricks of the Mexicans. Today Christoph, the German lad, was showing me the tricks of the Mexicans, how they capture their rats with a bucket filled with water, a little ramp leading to a diving board, and a fresh morsel of bacon at the end. The rat comes up the little plank, ready to perform a dive for the food, and immediately falls into the abyss, the 5-gallon bucket, where he drowns from the water inside. The Hawaiian Natives. I forgot to bring Christoph's ramp and diving board home last night because I was too stoned. The Hawaiian natives showed up at the party in the village, and one of them was a pot-growing maniac. He rolled up a giant joint with several grams of northern cal, wrapping it up in a large tobacco leaf, and we all took turns smoking this giant spleef. But later, when I had to go home, the wind was piercing cold, and it was such a creepy feeling walking up the road. I kept thinking of horrible thoughts, like the mountains exploding and falling down and a big avalanche killing me before I made it to my gate. Once inside my little shed, I was in shock from the stoniness of the giant blunt that the Hawaiian man had given us. And when I lay down in bed, my head spun around in all these demonic dreams. I turned on the radio. Coast to Coast with George Corey was on, and they were broadcasting live from Hawaii, which I thought was so weird. I just lay there restless, tossing and turning, thinking of terrible things as the people on the radio called up with their ghost stories, driving me further nuts. My arm was frozen, and so was my leg, and I kept having to get up to take a piss over and over again until my body was drained of all fluids. Oh my God, what a night that was. I was so wasted and paranoid of the impending doom, the end of the world, and the end of the old surfer man.